part of this as parents with kids that potentially may have more deeper issues on the mental health side is observing. Is this just a situational thing where, they're depressed because?
Oh. Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
I like it.
Yes. This is like how do I classify this? Like an action movie. It's kind of like action surf movie music, I think.
Like
I don't
Point
know.
Break. Let's go Point Break.
Point Break. Yes, Amy. There you go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our On Purpose Parent podcast. As usual, except I've missed a few episodes.
Yes,
but as
you have.
usual, I'm Kurt.
Hi, Kurt.
Here's Grace.
I'm Grace.
We'll get to our wonderful guest, Amy, in a few moments. And off to my left, Grace is right.
Yes, who is it?
We
Who
have
do people
an
think
unfamiliar
is here?
face.
It is not producer Chris.
It is not producer Chris. We're praying for producer Chris.
Yes.
Producer Chris's wife is going through a scary health moment,
Right.
and we're praying for that. Trusting that all's going to be good. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
As
Yeah.
it can be. But in the infamous, in lieu of producer Chris, we've got, I guess we'll just call him producer James.
Yeah, we have to.
James
He's in the
Browning,
seat.
ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now,
Where's your own applause? You're not going to
Yeah,
press
you're
that
not gonna-
button.
you're not- Chris,
The growing crowd.
Chris would have applauded for himself 18 times by now.
Yeah.
I'm light on the soundboard. Just
Oh,
so
you're a little bit light, on the fingers, a little bit light. Okay.
Yeah.
We actually appreciate that more than you understand.
So you're not going to press the button that turns our voice into a robot during the
no.
episode?
Wow.
Okay.
That's
All
probably not
right.
going to happen the entire episode.
Hey, I appreciate that.
So here's what I'm getting. Here's the James vibe I'm getting.
Yeah.
James just wants to survive the next
This
episode
time with us.
without
Dot those I's and cross those T's.
James is he's a temporary producer for us for a few episodes.
Yes.
But James is a pastor at our church.
Mm-hmm.
He's an IT/web/podcast guru. He's also you have your Master's of Divinity too, right?
Yes.
So he's
He's
like
multifaceted,
yes.
multi-talented
Yes.
producer
He's
today.
equally gifted in theology and technology.
Oh, that is good. Did you prepare that?
No,
Did you just say that off the
no,
top of
just
your
comes off
Good
the top
job,
of my
Kurt.
mind.
Nice flow.
So anyway, let's get into it. Today we're kicking off a 3-episode series.
Yes.
That I don't even know what's the title.
The title
our
is
series?
Parenting Through Mental Health Challenges. It's a big one.
That's a big one,
It's a really big one.
and can lend itself to being a little bit heavy, but really important.
So
and
important,
you know
yeah.
what I was thinking about is earlier as I was driving into the offices, I was thinking like when I was a kid, and really even when we were raising our kids, we didn't talk much about
Right.
this subject. I mean, everybody knew that there are people with some mental health challenges and things, anxiety, depression, the whole
Maybe
gamut,
more
right?
severe.
ADHD, OCD, some of the things, right? But you didn't talk about it that much unless it was really severe. And it felt like you only talked about it if you were forced to talk about it. Well, we can't hide it anymore, so we might as well talk about it.
Right.
And I'm really thankful that we live in an age now where as a society and as a church, the capital C church, as a group of Christians, the body of Christ, we're just willing to talk about a lot of things more openly and honestly, and mental health, and especially how it affects children and teenagers, adolescents, probably more. We'll talk about it, but adolescents probably more even than younger kids. It just feels like, wow, we've entered into this area where we're just healthier as a church.
We're becoming more aware.
Yes.
And maybe less stigma.
Yes.
I mean, that's, I think, what was so difficult in the past is if you are a parent parenting a child with mental illness, you probably, and even now too, it could exist, probably feel so alone because of all of the stigma that existed.
for sure.
Maybe misunderstandings
Yep.
of what it actually is.
Yep. And that's why we are so thrilled to have Amy Kendall with us today. Yay! Applause right now. James Browning.
Okay, yay, there you go. We did it.
James is very
Producer
light.
James.
Wait. Oh, there it is. But Amy Kendall is no stranger to people at our church, but a whole bunch of people that listen to this podcast don't go to our church. Amy is one of the pastors on our, what we call our next generation, our next gen team. And she helps us figure out all things pastoral care, disabilities, and mental health. Amy, what's your official title?
I am the next gen disability and mental health pastor.
There you
There
go.
you go.
That's amazing.
I refer to her as sort of like our specialized ministries pastor. She's like
The utility
the
pastor.
utility pastor. Yeah, the jack of all trades.
Right.
If we have a situation in a youth group or a kids ministry or a family in our church that we're going, oh boy, what do we do? Like what? Usually Amy's who we call.
How can we support
How
this
can we
family?
support this
It's a little
family?
bit something I'm not used to,
Yep.
right?
Yep. But
That's
you're an
great.
expert-ish. I mean, none of us are total experts, right? But you're an expert-ish in the world of mental health and adolescent mental health and childhood mental health, which we'll talk a little bit about maybe some of those differences.
Right.
But you serve such a vital role in our ministry, and you have so much. We've learned so much by having you on our team that we're just super excited to have you join us for 3 episodes.
Yeah, amazing.
And here's a little disclaimer: some parents right now are going, I'm going to check out. I'll skip the next 3 episodes. That's not me. I would just encourage you not to do that. You probably have friends who somebody in their family is struggling or fighting through this. They're figuring it out, and you'll want to maybe learn some things that will help you be a better friend and a better source of support and encouragement to those families.
Oh, great point.
Or, you'll somebody in your neighborhood or whatever the case may be. So it's one of those episodes or one of those topics where it's easy to say, okay, that's not me.
Right.
And it's not like a super fun topic. So if I'm not dealing with it and it's no fun, why would I listen?
Right.
Well, because we want to put extra tools in our tool belt as human beings and as Jesus followers, because we never know who the Lord's going to bring into our path. So anyway, Amy, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we've got basically our format for the next 3 episodes is we've just got 3 questions per episode that we're gonna ask, and you're gonna go to town.
Awesome.
And we probably don't have a whole lot to add because we're not experts.
We're here to absorb.
I have
be
limited
a sponge.
experience. Yeah, we're here to absorb and be a sponge and learn along with everybody else.
I imagine you have lots of input. It'll be great. I think everyone does. But so yeah, my name is Amy Kendall. I've been on staff here for almost over 16 years now.
Wow.
My bachelor's is in ministry, but my master's is in marriage, family, and child counseling, which is now called MFT. So now it's marriage, family therapy. And so it's my background, but I also have the pleasure of having a son who has some mental health challenges. Disclaimer, he is totally okay with me talking about it. I ask all the time, like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, not a problem. So
Did he at least get anything out of the deal? Like, Mom, if you'll upgrade my iPhone, then you can talk about it on
Every
the podcast.
mention, I
He
get
did-
$5.
man,
No.
I gotta coach that guy up a little bit.
I think I'm thinking to keep him away from you. But yeah, so my son has pretty significant ADHD, and he also has Tourette's. And then he also has an anxiety disorder. He has obsessive compulsive disorder, and he has sensory processing disorder.
Wow.
So he is my hero. I say it all the time. He is my hero. He does it with such dignity and grace. And I'm a better pastor, I'm a better minister because of my son.
Right.
How old is he?
He is going to be 20 in 10 days.
Wow.
So he's almost, he's probably what happens, he's 20.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
So the whole time I've been
Right.
doing this, so he's kind of who I learned from, as well as, book smart and life smart, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. And
Right.
when you learn something new, you read something new, you say, hey, let me try a new
He's pretty, he's pretty,
a new tactic, a new tool, a new.
But what a great resource, because with him being 20, I mean, you've been through
Yes.
every stage. We have parent listeners who have kids who are, newborns to kindergarten,
Right.
elementary age, to middle school, to high school.
Yeah.
And really excited to hear your experience, that you've learned from all of these different stages.
Yeah, it's been great to be able to learn, but at the same time, like I said, I wouldn't say he's a guinea pig by any way, shape, or form, but to be able to talk through him, talk with him about different things and learn, and him being, truthful about like, nope, that's not how it is, or
Right.
nope, it's this way. And luckily he's really open and we have a good relationship. And so we're able to talk often about the things. And I wouldn't say it's been easy at all, but I have to say, we are better people because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Amazing.
Well, with your permission, we're just going to jump in. We've got 3 questions, and I'm just going to read word for word the questions so that I get them right, and so that we give you the most, like the best shot at answering kind of what was on our mind. Here's question number 1 for you, Amy, is how can parents differentiate between typical developmental behavior and potential signs of mental health issues in their children, right? Because there's a lot of stuff about raising kids, especially as they enter adolescence, that you're like, my son has issues, my daughter has, and there is a certain amount of anxiety that's natural. There's a certain level of depression or depressing, teenagers go through highs and lows. It's part of as they're going through puberty.
There's a lot of angst.
So how would you help a parent differentiate between, hey, this is the normal stuff, and this is maybe some stuff that you should pay attention to because it could be a sign towards something maybe a little bit more serious?
I think, like you said, there's a big difference between being anxious and having a generalized anxiety disorder. There's a big difference between being depressed and having depression. And so you have to look at some of those things. And it's difficult having teenagers. And anybody who has a teenager, they're the moodiest people we've ever met.
Right.
And so you definitely, especially if you're maybe a first-time parent and you've never had a teenager, maybe you're the first one and your friends who have all of a sudden have this, and you're like, what is going on? Satan, we rebuke you because things are going on. And so I think the thing to remember is in general with mental health, especially when we look at diagnoses, we look at the DSM, which is kind of like our Bible, our book, and it has all the diagnoses.
What does DSM stand for?
It stands for Diagnostic Statistical Manual, and it has all the diagnoses. So if you were a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist, it has all the codable diagnoses in there. And so, and for most of those diagnoses, a lot of it has to do with duration. So if you have a child who is really sad because their boyfriend broke up with them, and then a few days later they keep going like that, then they're depressed. Versus if you have a child who goes maybe through a friend, is upset at them, or a boyfriend breaks up or girlfriend breaks up or whatever it is, and it goes into weeks of not being able to get out of the bed, then it's more looking at depression. And so a lot of it has to do with duration. And it's not something that comes and goes quickly, because typically for anxiety, it's something that's, extremely overwhelming, or whatever the diagnosis, if you have a child, my son has OCD, and so he's a hand washer, much better now, but he used to be a big time hand washer. And so in the winter, his hands were like cracked dry.
Right.
And so we had to look at are you not liking your hands dirty? Or is this something where you feel like something's on your hands? And so just really looking at what are the characteristics of it, and is it something that, for a lot of us, when we feel anxious, we can usually sit down and talk through it like that. If you truly have an anxiety disorder, it takes a while. And the other thing is also looking at some of our diagnoses need meds. Here at Saddleback, we are not anti-meds, but it has to be for your family. It's case by case, whether you feel like it, where if you're just depressed, medication's not going to make it disappear. But if you have depression, it's going to be something that with work from either a psychiatrist or a MD doctor.
So if there's a parent listening and they're going, okay, I hear that, and I'm not quite sure. Is there a public place? Is there where would you say where would you push people to get some deeper insight to help them figure out, hey, is this just typical
distinguish,
anxiety? They're anxious about this, or maybe they have some anxiety diagnosis. Where would they go to get that help?
I think if they get to the point where they're like, okay, I'm concerned, and I'm starting to see this be a pattern, or like I said, I think when parents get to the point where this is becoming something they see often, then I think they would say okay, I think we need to do something about this. And so first and foremost, we'd recommend you reach out to some type of counseling. I think that's always the best, because you could Google till you're blue in the face and you're going to go down rabbit trails and
Right.
you're going to all of a sudden be self-diagnosing.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned when I was getting my master's degree is they told us never to self-diagnose nor diagnose your family. And I think that's typical. We want to like look up all the things and say, oh my gosh, yes, it's this and this and this. And we can always kind of make things a little gray. And so I think if people are really like, if a parent is seriously like, okay, this is affecting our family dynamics and there's more going on, I think the best thing to do is to reach out. Saddleback has a great list of therapists that we recommend, one specifically for teenagers, even one specifically for children, that we could say, hey, these are people that we vetted and we see and we really would recommend.
And then that's for people who go to our church. But if somebody's listening who goes to Idaho, they live in Idaho or wherever.
True.
It's just, would you suggest starting find one of the larger churches in your community that probably have more resources that can point you to some Christian counselors and some initial help? Would you just go to your general practitioner and say, hey, what do you suggest?
I wouldn't. I mean, you could talk to your general practitioner. I mean, I think some of them are good at mental health and some of them are not. It just depends. I think going to a church. Another great way is to look at NAMI, which is the National Organization of Mental Health. And so looking at NAMI, they're nationwide, and so they can give you some good therapists. I think as much as all of us would love to see a Christian counselor, and that'd be great, there are some secular counselors when it comes to mental health that are fabulous, and they really incorporate people's faith as well.
Sure.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. It sounds like, one of the things we've talked about in past episodes, not about mental health, but just about parenting, was just being observant of our children and noticing the patterns. And it sounds like what you're saying too is part of this as parents with kids that potentially may have more deeper issues on the mental health side is observing. Is this just a situational thing where, they're depressed because something happened and it's a short-term thing, or is there that pattern happening? And if so, that you can advocate for your child and go and get the resources. So that's helpful.
And not all mental health is bad. Like my son has sensory processing disorder, and it's on the scheme of mental health. And so there's different things with that. And so for him, it's just learning how to like do things differently. So it's not always like when I say you're affecting your family, it doesn't have to always be that your family's in crisis.
Right.
Sometimes it's just like, okay, I see things that are maybe a little different than typical development.
Right.
That's great. That's an excellent point. That's super helpful. Thank you for that. Okay, so I have the second question, which is, what are some effective strategies for initiating conversations about mental health with children in a way that they can understand?
I think the biggest thing I always tell people is to ask questions and ask open-ended questions. I mean, because I think it's really easy for us to go in with our scheme of what we think it is. Oh, well, I had a friend who was like this, or I saw this, or whatever. The one thing I think has been the greatest blessing, especially with my son, is I ask questions. So how are you feeling? How did that make you feel? When this happens, what's going on? What are your thoughts about that? And so I think sometimes is just to get them to talk. And when you talk, we always say here at Saddleback, we always say, you can freak out on the inside, not on the outside. And so if they say something that is like, that blows your mind and you're thinking, oh, goodness gracious, I wasn't ready for that, is to be able to say, wow, that must be really difficult. How do you deal with that? And so talking about that, and just especially, I think when you let your kid know that you're willing to sit down and have those conversations, they already know that you want to be there for them, versus like, oh, wow, that's difficult. Okay, well, I'm going to call somebody and find out help. But it's really just have that conversation. Some of the best things I've ever done is just spend time with my son and just really, hear his story. And even with the people that I serve here at Saddleback, is just being able to ask questions and learn more. And I think for a lot of kids who truly are struggling with mental health, they want to be heard, because I think so often they've been afraid to be heard because of the stigma that is around mental health, and it's getting better.
Right.
I have to say, I'm so thankful that we have people who are in the public eye that are willing to speak out on mental health now. But I think they want to be able to share their story. And when they share it, it makes it a little more real and a little more easy to move on and get the help if needed. or be able to willing to share it with others so they can get better.
So
That's great.
if I'm hearing you right, it's almost like every other issue or challenge with our kids is the best strategy to initiating these conversations is practice communicating with your kids about all the things.
Yeah.
Right. If you have open lines of communication with your kids so that if you're seeing, well, in my mind, when you were talking about the earlier question, I put frequency and duration. Like how often is this happening and for how long? Like,
Yeah.
you know, often for a long time could be an issue, right?
Maybe that's a flag.
But so that when you do decide to bring it up or ask an open-ended question, it's just part of how you live your life as a parent. We talk about everything in our family.
Right.
We talk about, of course, my mom's asking me about this because she asks me about all kinds of stuff. If we're not talking to our kids about day-to-day life, and then all of a sudden we've got this deep question, a personal question about something we've noticed in their behavior, how they're handling depression or whatnot. That's like, oh, that's really deep out of nowhere. My family never talks about that, and it might be tougher to have an honest conversation.
Yeah. And what I love about that is it kind of changes your mindset as a parent, because I think when you think, oh my goodness, does my child have like a mental health issue? That can be anxiety inducing for a parent. And so like you said, I've been one of those people that you're like Googling and you're like, oh my gosh, like what's happening with like health issues? Like we have all the diseases, everyone. But if you shift your focus to what you were saying, when you're just asking the child, like, how are you feeling? Like, oh, how was that experience to you? It kind of makes it more about the relationship, more personal, and whatever the issue is, you're going through it together. You're going through it in a way that, I loved what you said at the end of the last question. It's not always like it's a problem. Like there's something so terrible. It's more, it can be difficult, but it could also be, how can we adjust things for you, because this is how you are, sensing the world and just navigating that together.
We have two mottos, and I've shared them before when I have spoken before, but we wholeheartedly hold it onto in our family. And we say, one, different isn't defective. And so just because, maybe you're different, maybe you're struggling with a mental health, it doesn't mean that you're broken. I recently got a shirt that said, even colored crayons color, broken crayons can still color. And so the reality is it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us. We're just different. And then the other one we say is our weakness is our witness. And so my son knows that the things that he struggles with, one is his testimony, and two, he can use it for God's glory. And so he's been able to, be able to understand students that I could never understand, but I'm able to at least use that as like, oh, I get it. I've walked beside someone going through this, but at the same time, he can relate to people I can never relate to.
Right.
And so it's just neat. And so we hold on to those as well. And so that it really is, like I said, he's my hero. And because he, we can do mental health well if we have those open line of conversations.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's great.
Before we wrap up for this episode, again, we're stretching. There's just so much to talk about,
Yes.
which is why we're stretching this over 3 episodes.
Yep.
Otherwise, it would be one
Very long.
90
Very
minute
big one,
90
yeah.
minute episode. So we're gonna spread it out. But you referred to a few tools and resources, Amy, earlier. But can you just rattle off a few? If a parent's saying, "Okay, I just need some tools. I need some resources. What do I read? What's the best book to start? Where's a good website?"
I know we're going to talk about that at a later time.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of good resources. I could go on and on. I have to say the one thing is we have a really good wealth of like kind of like resource tools at Saddleback that anyone can reach out. You probably have to go through me. So anyone can email me at Amy K, so AMYK at saddleback.com. And we have videos. And we'll talk about it again in a later podcast. We have videos that we've created on a multitude of mental health diagnoses and also some tough stuff like trauma and grief and some other things. And then we also have a list of resources also that we hand out. And it has books, it has magazine articles, it has websites, and it has videos that we recommend when going through those things. So
well,
good.
I'm glad we're going to mention it probably in all 3 episodes, because there might be people who miss one of these episodes, and we just want to make sure that they got some places. So if you email Amy at amyk@saddleback.com, by the way, she's done, these things are awesome. She's done like a whole bunch of 2 to 3 minute, 4 minute episodes on different situations.
As has Kurt. Kurt's done a few as well.
Oh, you might find Kurt there too.
that Amy wrote for me.
To read verbatim.
Amy didn't want to be the face on all of them, so she wrote a script that they turned on the camera,
revealed.
and I read the script. Well,
Amy is the mastermind, basically.
Anybody who knows me would watch these videos and go, Kurt doesn't know. He doesn't know that stuff. Who wrote that for
he
Kurt?
sounds so wise.
Amy wrote that for Anyway, Amy, thanks so much for joining us for this kind of introductory episode on the topic, a really serious, important topic that we're really honored that you would lend some wisdom and insight into. Parents, thanks for joining us. We hope you will listen to the next 2 episodes, share it with a friend. As always, you can watch other episodes right here. You can subscribe right here. And we will see you next time around.
See you soon, everybody.
Thanks, Producer James. Yay, Producer James in the house.